Okay, so welcome everyone to the next ReproNim webinar. Today we are excited to have Jean-Baptiste Poline present to us, who's often from McGill, but today I suspect is speaking to us from Austin, Texas. But so without further ado, we will turn things over to JB.
Thank you, Dave. Hello, everyone. So my title today is What Should Be Taught to Curb the Reproducibility Crisis. And this is a key area because we know that we're not going to, reproducibility crisis is also partly a cultural crisis, and we need to change the culture of the future generation, and that goes through training. So in part one, I will try to cover what should be taught, and part two, and how, when, to whom, and the practicalities of those things. So my first thought was what should be taught really depends on why the reproducibility crisis has occurred. And therefore, we're going to look at the various causes of the reproducibility crisis and then use those causes to see what should be the answer to the problem. So cause one, statistics. So I'll replay that slide that many of you may have seen already, which is basically the problem of the sample size, where we look at how much a sample size with a small sample size studies have small effects. So the sample size is here shown in the circle, the small circles that you see here, and the year of publication is on the x-axis and the effect size is on the y-axis. And you see that with small sample size, we've got effect size a little bit over the place, and with large sample size, we've got effect size that are close to zero. In this instance, that was for the link between the BDNF variant and the hippocampal volume. That type of a problem is occurring all over again and again, and this is one of the things we need to understand, and the community needs to understand. The effect size and sample size problems, and so the statistical aspect of these are crucial to be taught correctly. This is something that has been seen in many instances. This is the Button et al. Paper that you may have seen already, and showing that the power of analysis in neuroscience are often less than 50% or even less than 30%, causing a problem in the probability of having your hypothesis, alternative hypothesis correct, even if you have a significant test, and causing also high effect size that are actually not true effect size. This is true in neuroimaging specifically, and we've seen the from the ReproDrug study that the sample size that is being used in 2015-16 is still around 20, 25. Maybe now it will be 30 if we follow the curve. But with that sample size, the average sample size of a neuroimaging study, we see that the effect size that is detectable with a power of 80% will be something around 1, a bit less than 1. And looking at the effect size of the HCP study, we see that those effect sizes are way below the 1 or a bit below, a bit less than 1. And we see that these, even like for motor cortex and really motor task, 0.7 is the median effect size in the motor cortex, which will require more than 30 subjects to be detected at 80%. So we do have a problem of statistical learning here from the community. There's the cause of the software, and I'll go a little bit quicker on this aspect. There's a very famous quote from the in the 90s where the community of companies realized that non-tested code was broken code. So basically they understood that if we don't test correctly all the code, then there will be bugs occurring in the software. And that is true in the industry. That is also true and very true in the research area. So they developed the unique integration testing frameworks, and we know that now that neuroimaging software have bugs. Some of them we have found, some of them we probably have not found yet, and we don't. So testing and having a proper testing framework for those software is critical. So how do you test the script that you inherit from the previous PhD postdoc when you're in a lab? This is hard work. It's not work that is very well acknowledged, and people would often prefer to, trust the previous postdoc or PhD and go along with the results. And sometimes it is tested, but it's fairly rare in my experience. This is something that has been like for a long time recognized. David Donohoe, who is like a statistician in Stanford, was saying that our goal is in science is really to root out the mistakes and self-delusion and recognizing and rooting out error. That's our main goal when we're doing science. And he was talking about the computational problems. Software, still software, and I'm talking about problems in software now. I'm talking about the just the change in software in our community when we try to do a study with one software or another software. So here in this instance, this is a study by Catterwall showing the difference that when you're looking at the brain volume for different cohorts, ASD versus normal control. And when you're looking at, if you're trying to detect the difference between the SPM, FSL, and FreeSurfer software, you will see that you will find a difference in some software and not find a difference in some other software, looking at the total intracranial volume, gray matter, white matter, CSF. So in this instance, we're not saying that there's a specific problem in one software. We're just saying there's variability across software, and that's a cause, or at least an explanation of why we find results in neuroimaging not always reproducible. And this is just another example of this with the correlation between ants and FreeSurfer area in different region of interest, and you see that this correlation is pretty poor, unless it is between different versions of FreeSurfer. This flexibility of which software we use, but also which kind of like parameters we put in those pipelines is also exampled here with the work of Josh Karp, showing that the maximum p-value or the maximum t-value found in the same data set using many different pipelines, all of them are legitimate in some sense because all of them have been described in the literature. So that's, with all those different choices that you do for analyzing functional MRI, you end up like having a lot of flexibility in where you will find the peak activity or what is the pattern that you will find. So this is the famous cluster failure paper as well, where you see that there's a lot of false positive. So it's a bit of an interaction between software issues and statistics. This is the paper showing that there's a lot of false positive rates if you define a statistical test using a cluster test we're using FSL or SPM or AFNI, and this is mainly due. The problem is mainly due here to the threshold at which those clusters have been built. Excuse me. So Eklund et al. Estimated that about 3,000 papers were affected by this low threshold problem, but what I'm saying here is that there's a lot of other papers that are actually not even trying to correct or having like a poor correction techniques. So by the way, it is also a software problem in the sense like FSL had this low threshold for defining clusters by default, while SPM had a high threshold by default. So it really depend on how much people would know about the techniques, but also which software they would take. Because of reproducibility data, it's bugs in data are actually more frequent than usual, and then we think. So databases don't contain always what they say they do. There's the wrong QC. There's QC performed several times. The headers of the files are not correct. There's a very classic example in neuroimaging is our left versus right catastrophic handling in the early days of neuroimaging. We never knew what was left and what was right, and the data, the provenance of the data is lost. There's a recent example in the ABCD study where scans that have been processed using some field correction were actually badly processed because there was a left and right problem again, only for the Philips scanner. So that, if you had to recheck your results, you would have to remove all those scans before doing the analysis. And the biobank, the UK biobank, for instance, is always changing its number of participants because participants withdraw their consent, or because there are problems being found and you have to update the data set or the metadata. And I've added a fourth point, which is the publishing culture. I believe that a lot of the problem that are arising are due to the fact that we are pushed by the academic environment to publish as soon as possible and as much as possible, because publishing and our articles are mostly the currency by which we gain we move on with our careers and have new positions and all those things. So or get grants and etc. So the publishing culture, pushing for publishing very quickly and with an emphasis not on the actual products of data and software, but on the emphasis of the story that is being portrayed in the article, in the PDF article, I think is one of the problems that we need to tackle as well if we want to talk about reproducibility in neuroimaging. So right, so evidence of at the heart of the research reproducibility is the publication culture that dictates collaboration, grants, job, and so on. There was a nice quote here from Peter Higgs that says that today I wouldn't get an academic job. It's simple as that. I don't think I would be regarded as productive enough. And Peter Higgs had the Nobel Prize recently. And mistakes in paper are easy to find, but really hard to think. There's a nice study by Allison et al. In 2016, showing the statistical errors in the submission and how to streamline post-publication correction, and showing how it was super hard to actually correct for things, and often editors or authors were reluctant to actually do the correction. So errors in the literature are actually very hard to correct. And mostly because they require raw data analysis code, and that's not often provided. So how to change that? Good luck with that. It's very hard to change the culture, and this is still what we should maybe make sure that in the training material, in what we train people with, we give some of this information of how we should act as a community to curb that problem. So what are the training challenges as solution, and how do we, what do we do in ReproNim, and what should we be doing more? And so I'll be taking a bit of time now to discuss the second part of the webinar. So this is the outline of this second part. So first of all, what do we teach? What's in the ReproNim modules? When and where and how do we teach? So there's various possibilities that we are acting on, and how do we scale the teaching, and how do we keep material updated? So ReproNim, this is one of the website page that I want to show you here specifically is all the courses that are being offered. And when I say courses, it's more like a set of material that are being offered to the community for helping to teach reproducible neuroimaging. So in terms of the principle, what we really would like, we really would like to have in-depth training. The problem with that is time. I mean, we often have a day or two of training, and that's not enough to actually go in depth. And I really like this little picture that I've found on the web, and there's no license associated with it, so I don't know if I can put it back, but this is what I'm doing, which is how to draw all, like with the famous already book kind of aspect, and use you draw a circle and this oval here, and then you draw the rest of the dot. And that's often what is being taught in neuroimaging is you give the first couple of first steps, and then there's so much more that you actually would need to know to do a proper, well reproducible neuroimaging analysis. So, so we have to make sure that we invest in the tools, that we have fair material, that the material itself is findable, accessible, can be reused and improved. Teaching with hands-on aspect is really important. There's been a lot of workshops that have too little hands-on aspect. That makes it really hard to actually reuse the teaching material. But also making sure that when we have a notebook that describes something, maybe in a Jupyter notebook, how we get out of that notebook to do the actual true analysis. And how to give feedback and help improve the material. All those things are principle of that updated material and fair material is critical for us in this teaching mission. So those are the 5 modules that are online, and you can find on our GitHub repos, and you also can find in websites, and I'll show you that they're also now in a MOOC on the Moodle platform. So a quick introduction to those modules, and then we divided the world into 4 aspects. The computational basis that you need to perform reproducible and neuroimaging analysis, fair data, what kind of information you need to make data findable, accessible, annotated in a proper way, such that if you give data to someone, you will have a better chance to be understood. Data processing with the pipelines and the containerization aspects, and then some of the statistics that I've alluded to. So software and code training are critical. So those are the reproducible basics, and the module for data processing are the 2 modules that are mostly addressing this aspect of training. And you will find there a number of useful resources on this side of things. For instance, you get GitHub, the shell and tooling. You get a bit, how to use Python. I don't think we have yet things in our Octave, but all those, how to integrate code in containers, data models, excuse me, containerization techniques to make sure that you can reproduce the environment of a pipeline or an analysis, and also like the new sort of version control data aspect with DataLab, and also provenance aspect of techniques for processing. Fair data is telling us, how do we make those data reusable in the best way. So for the R aspect and showing, and we know that one of the problems is the annotation of the data, such that if you, for instance, have a column with a variable saying that this is the age of the participants, if an age is kind of simple, we're just going to assume that it's age in year after the birth, but age can be anything, can be after in animal, it could be like in weeks, and so on. So describing properly our data, if we want to make them reusable and therefore make our studies more replicable by others, that's one of the key aspects of this module. Using also the standards for describing data, for instance, the brain imaging data structure, and other standards that you probably need to apply to use if you want to make your data sets fair in the neuroimaging world. And finding the language and how the terms that are being used is not an easy thing. There's a lot of plenty of different possible ontologies and terminologies, and so we're trying our best to actually propose some things in that space using the neuroimaging data models structure. DataLab is one of the new. Well, it's not very new. It's been there for quite a few years now, and it's extending the control version system that people are using to track their code and the changes to their code, extended this principle to data sets using Git and GitAnnex as the layer for data lab, and also incorporating some metadata analysis, some metadata handling in the data set. So this is an extremely useful project, and it has a bunch of technical aspects to be mastered, and so some of the courses that we give and the material will be pointing to data lab techniques. Stats have, I think, I've covered a bit the stat before, so I won't go into details, but obviously, looking at what is p-value, why what is not always well can be interpreted, what are the effect sizes, the power, the positive predictive value, and so on. What are those things, and why they are important, and what we should be careful about our studies in that respect is something that hopefully this material will help you with. And these aspects of statistics that are fundamental. So we really want to make sure that people understand the fundamental, not apply just a recipe for having a test, and because that has been the cause of some of the irreproducible results that we had in the research. Those modules are now on the Moodle platform, and we developed some quizzes. So if those things are being now almost reusable for actual proper courses. If you want to take a MOOC in that area, there's a first instance of this MOOC on the Moodle platform. It's still being finalized and a bit errant, so I wouldn't recommend to do it right now, but it's going to be, it's already, like, if you have already some of the modules, and if you definitely, if you're not too picky, but yet with all the little details, it's something you can look at. We'll be finalizing this very soon. Training at workshops. So ReproNim has done a lot of the first training with the hands-on and workshops, usually 1 or 2 days, navigating and trying to get the local install, or downloading virtual machines, or setting up Amazon instances, all those things to make sure that the attendees can take with them something that they can reuse in their labs or in their research. I think personally that 1 or 2 days are really hard to work with, and we are moving towards more like having a complementary training aspects that will be doing summer schools that are much longer, or official, or a partnership with official university courses. And one of the aspects that we would like, we are careful with, is always like having a good evaluation of impact. And this evaluation at the moment is done just after the courses. I think it'll be interesting to see how we can evaluate in the longer term, and what's the impact of those training after a few weeks or after a few months of work. This is just a quick list of all the workshops and things, and we've been involved in. I want to say that we are trying to get in the different space that the community is using. So first, workshops is one, but summer programming weeks is another one. Codathon, the OHBM Hackathon trend track, spearheaded by Dave. The Repro hours at conferences, or SFN, OHBM. The some educational satellite events, some, as I said, official courses that are being developed, and so on. And again, hackathon and training courses. So we are trying to span, different spaces where we can reach out to the community to build a solid training in reproducible brain imaging. And I'm excited to see the latest sort of action on this side, which is the Train-the-Trainer program. We know that we are not enough, obviously, within the ReproNim team to train a large community. So what we've done is start to train future trainers using, in partnership with INCF, the International Neuroinformatics Coordinating Facility. And this will allow us to scale way more in the space of training. And we have already done one edition in 2019, and this is the second edition that is going to happen. We've just today selected our 10 next fellows, INCF ReproNim fellows for reproducible neuroimaging. And we're going to invite those fellows to design their course, design their workshops, and we're going to help them to in this endeavor, such that those fellows will be training other groups, and hopefully there will be some people coming from those other groups that will be themselves becoming trainer, and then we'll hopefully have the capacity to reach a large community using this concept. And this is all the courses and workshops that our first generation of trainer fellows have done. I would like to end, or I don't know if I think I'm close to the end. I would like to point out that what I think the overarching aspect of reproducible neuroimaging is really to build a community of people that are well trained and can train on reproducible neuroimaging. So it's really a community building aspect that we are involved with, and where we're trying to, through our different actions, hackathon, training workshops, trainer, and so on. We're building that community. Hopefully, we're contributing to build that community of people with expertise in reproducible neuroimaging, which will eventually, hopefully, diffuse enough to change somehow the culture of what we're doing and how we're doing research in brain imaging. I think that's so. The last point I want to make is the ultimate goal is that what we find in the literature is a good set of results that are reproducible and replicable and generalizable to various aspects. So generalizable to different data sets, generalizable to different software, parameterization. And for this, we absolutely need both the fundamental understanding of statistics, but also all the techniques for being efficient in launching and tracking provenance of our results. So the concept of a reproducible publication is really the thing that we would like to, all this community of trainees and trainers to move towards, to say, hey, now when we're publishing something in neuroimaging, we're publishing something that is a reproducible and replicable object that can generalize to different situations, or where the generalization of is very well described. For this, touching on the publication aspect, there are some good conferences. I just want to point to Force 11, which is one of the place where these new publication techniques and direction are defined. And this is it. I would like to thank everyone from the ReproNim team, and I'm sure I've left a lot of people that would like to. It's been a lot of fun and very interesting to work in this area. I'm really committed to continue do what I can in this space. Thank you all.
Thanks a bunch, JB. There is the opportunity for questions for those of you on the line, to see if you can come up with a way to unmute yourself and ask away if you can and want to. So as an icebreaker question, JB, in the ideal world, if you wanted to teach, the whole set of ReproNim materials and don't have the constraints of workshops and other things, what would be the best way, to do this despite all the constraints?
I really like the idea that it will require time. That time is essence, because people need to have enough time to absorb and test and make those tools something that they feel comfortable with. And so I would go for summer school of a few weeks, and something that actually we're hoping to develop we are developing in Montreal. We'll have like a 5-week course this year, and one of them would be showing quite a few of those reproducible techniques. And then there is a project for the last 3 weeks of that summer school, and that project could be almost like a sort of like a publication. Of the goal would be of that project would be, okay, how do we make this project reproducible publication project? So I mean, even if it's not like it's just a fake reproducible publication in the sense that that may not have all the interesting scientific components, but at least in terms of like, you're running a neuroimaging project and you're describing the results, and the whole thing, the whole project is actually now reproducible and replicable projects. I think that's having like a summer school over quite a few weeks is really a good idea. And then I don't know how that scales because but that would be my favorite sort of medium.
Great. I see a message in the chat from Petra for the MOOC on Moodle. What is the time frame for this? Could I point the grad students there as early as fall 2020?
Yes, I think fall 2020, hopefully, touching wood, it's going to happen.
I hope June 10th. No, sorry.
June 10th is a better time frame. Yes, so definitely before the summer, we should have something which is reasonable, not perfect, but reasonable, and you will be able to point people to this space.
And part of the intent, or this is a leading question, you can follow on from it. The reason for MOOCifying it is so that there could be a certificate or something more formal than, hey, yeah, I just went through their website type of thing. Is that correct?
Right, and that's why we've included in the MOOC a number of quizzes and questions so that you can actually have a proper feedback in terms of like even mark or something that says, hey, you've passed 75% of the quizzes, and therefore we give you the badge of reproducible neuroimager. Yeah.
Again, it'll be a lovely, fun challenge to see if that helps, or how that badge can be used. Does it help younger people get jobs? Does it help older people get tenure and things like that? Yeah.
Right. Yes, I mean we hope so.
Yeah.
I think that's why the partnership with the universities is so important. I think the more we can engage professors and university administrators and to inject in their course curriculum this material in some ways, the better will be, because those courses will be taken for credit and people will take that seriously and so on. So I think that's the direction I think we should be aiming at.
And I'm not going to put Aaron on the spot for a question today, but just to say that our work with him and Fred Pryor at Arkansas is kind of one of our ways of trying to get to a real degree granting program and some real courses in that context.
Yes, that is correct. That is the intention, that we were to integrate these materials into the research imaging informatics course, but unfortunately that just keeps getting pushed back because we're trying to get as many students as we can on the same track, our imaging track. And so we've had a few additional students added last year, and we're looking at possibly the fall of next year or 2020. It could be the spring of 2020. I'm not on the curriculum planning committee, so I don't know when that course is going to come up again. But in the meantime, between now and then, I will try to integrate the Moodle materials into the syllabus for that. And I'm still planning the syllabus with Dr. Pryor. But I'm excited about it. I think that would be the optimal kind of full semester course as a way of integrating all of these materials. So I need to get to work on making the assignments and integrating that into a larger syllabus for that course.
Great. And again, I like that example, so I keep pointing it out, and sorry for not putting you on the spot this time.
No, that's quite right.
And there are other similar attempts in various grant forms that we hope to roll out additional examples of formal coursework if the granting gods look favorably upon us. So Petra's follow-up was great. If she wants someone to test it, let her know, and we have her email address. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. Our next webinar will be Friday, April 3rd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. It'll be David Keeter speaking on Pine IDM and managing semantic terminology. So programmatic aspects of accessing terminologies, standardized terminologies, and working with those, querying those, integrating those from the sort of programmatic side of things. So thank you, JB. Thank you, everyone. We will. This will be on the slides will be on the website, and the video will be on the archive in YouTube. And we'll hope to see you all in electronic land or next month.